We have the MSI Claw and we have the Asus Rog Ally. They're both in competition with each other, and which one is really the better device when it comes to PC handheld gaming? Well, we all know the Asus Rog Ally was released of June of 2023, and the MSI Claw was just released just a couple weeks ago. And now these are two devices that you're probably curious about, especially if you're looking for a PC handheld. Now, if you're interested in any of these devices, please check out the description links down below, as I do have them. When you do select them, it does help this channel so I can support and give you more reviews. I apologize for anybody out there who watched the last video and felt like it was kind of a rough cut, because it kind of was. I do work a night shift and plus post up videos, so I do apologize for that. I just wanted to send you guys the video out a lot quicker, but to be fair, next time I'll take a little bit more time, even if it takes an extra week. I do care about the quality of the videos that I do produce to you guys, and thank you for all the concerns out there. Well, anyway, to get to the next step here, take a look at the size and dimensions. Now, the Asus Rog Ally is a much more lighter device compared to the MSI Claw, which is a bit heavier, and you can see the size difference as well. Going into the specification side, I'm going to go over the Asus Rog Ally first. Now, the Asus Rog Ally has a AMD Ryzen Z1 Extreme. Well, this one does anyway. There is another variant out there, which is just the standard Z1. Now, if you do go for the Asus Rog Ally, I would say go for the Z1 Extreme. It is only $100 more, but it is way more capable than the standard Z1. It has 16 gigabytes of LPDDR5, up to 6400 megahertz, and it has 512 gigabytes of SSD storage. It also features Wi-Fi 6E, and it does also have Bluetooth version 5.3. It also features a battery, which is 40 watt hours. Now, for the MSI Claw, it features the newest Meteor Lake, which is the Intel i7 155H, which is this one. It does have another variant, which is the 135H. Now, it does have 16 gigabytes of LPDDR5 and it has 6400 megahertz of speed. It also has 512 gigabytes to 1 terabyte of NVMe storage, which is 2230. They both have 2230 NVMe's in there. It also features Wi-Fi 7, the newest Wi-Fi available, and it also has Bluetooth version 5.4. It features a battery in there, which is 53 watt hours, so it is 13 more watt hours compared to the Asus Rog Ally. Now let's talk a little bit more about their display, because they both have wonderful displays on them, and they're both eye-catching. The Asus Rog Ally features a 1920 by 1080p display. It has 8 milliseconds of response time, and it also features up to 120 hertz. Now, the MSI Claw's display is very similar. It features 1920 by 1080, so it's a full 1080p display. They both have 100% sRGB. They both are multi-touch screen, so you're able to touch on the screen, and it does both feature Windows 11 Home, which is all you really need. You don't really need Windows 11 Pro in a device like this, because again, you're not really going to expand on the device, which brings me to my next point about the customizability when it comes to both of these devices. Now, both of these devices, you can easily upgrade the SSD. Now, the MSI Claw is a tiny bit more intricate. It's just as easy, but just a little bit more details. So it's just a slight bit more complicated compared to the Asus Rog Ally, which is much easier to swap them out. In fact, I swapped out my Hall Effect joysticks and I swapped out the SSD inside of the Asus Rog Ally, which has up to 2 terabytes of NVMe storage. So beat that, some of you Xbox owners out there, because I know you guys still only have 512 gigabytes. Let me talk about the pricing of the models. Now, currently, the Asus Rog Ally is at $699 USD for the Z1 Extreme. For the standard Z1, it is $399.99 USD. I'd say go with the Z1 Extreme if you choose to go with a Asus Rog Ally. Now, the difference between the Z1 and the Z1 Extreme is just that they both have 2 different processors in there. It doesn't have really different NVMe sizes compared to the MSI Claw, which I will tell you about. They actually have 3 different variants. The first variant, as I mentioned earlier, has a 135H, which is the i5 Ultra. It also has 512 gigabytes of SSD storage, and it also has a $749.99 USD variant, which is the one I have currently. It has 155H, which is the Ultra 7, and it also has the 512 gigabytes of SSD storage, because I figured you can always upgrade the storage later. When you do go for the full out version, the $799.99 USD version of it, it does have up to 1 terabyte of SSD storage that comes with it. So for those who don't really like to take devices apart, this might be the easier one for you if 512 gigabytes just does not cut it out for you. But mainly, you probably want to know a lot more details before you make a decision about the controls of the devices. Now, the Asus Rog Ally has your standard Xbox controls, which is the A, B, X, Y, left bumper, right bumper, left trigger, right trigger, you get the idea. The only difference is the back of the device has 2 extra triggers in the back. So it could be M3 or M4, as I like to call them. They both do. Now, it's a little bit more stiffer when you use the MSI Claw when it comes to their triggers. Now, they both have Hall effect triggers. I didn't say joysticks because the only one that has Hall effect joysticks are the MSI Claw. So they are definitely a lot more long lasting, and they're actually much more accurate compared to the standard Asus Rog Ally joysticks, which comes with analog joysticks instead of Hall effects. I did upgrade my analog sticks to Hall effect sticks. When I did change them out, it gave the Asus Rog Ally much more accuracy. A fair comparison in stock settings, I would say the MSI Claw is a lot more accurate when it comes to their sticks compared to the Asus Rog Ally. They do have customization, which I will get into later in the software, where you can actually set dead zones, outer thresholds, inner thresholds, and you can even set gyroscoping. The triggers and the bumpers feel a lot better on the Rog Ally compared to the MSI Claw. They can feel a little bit stiff. They work excellent. I didn't really experience any issues control-wise. Now, the power buttons are on the direct opposite. Now, I like the Rog Ally's power buttons placement because if you're right-handed, it's much more easier to hit the power button because it's on the right side. MSI Claws, it's the exact opposite. It's on the left side. But they both have the same function, which they both use as a fingerprint scanner. It also has a volume rocker on the top of the device. Now, the Asus Rog Ally is more on the middle of the device compared to the MSI Claw, where it's more on the right side of the device. The SD card slot is also on the same side, believe it or not, on both devices, so it is on the left side. And the USB-C is also in a different placement. The USB-C is actually right next to the micro SD card slot. The USB-C slot is right next to the expansion slot for a GPU if you want to have a GPU expansion for your Asus ROG Ally. They both feature a 3.5mm jack where you can put your headphones in or you can put your headset in. But personally, to me, I feel like if they really both come out with a second generation device, please have two USB-C ports. It would make a big difference, especially when you hook it up to an external device. It would make it much more easier. Now, when it comes to cooling in both devices, they both have vapor chambers in there. The way it exhausts the heat is pretty impressive, as the Asus ROG Ally exhausts through the top of the device instead of the bottom of the device, so that way it doesn't burn your hands. The MSI Claw, interestingly enough, it vents the heat not only on the top of the device, but also on the bottom of the device. But the good news is you don't really feel it. The MSI Claw is actually a little bit more quiet compared to the Asus ROG Ally when the high fans kick on. But the temperatures are also different on both devices as well, as you do have two different processors. When it comes to the SD card storage, a big pain to talk about it when it comes to Asus ROG Ally's SD storage. Now, it works and sometimes it doesn't work depending on your Asus ROG Ally. There's a lot of complaints out there, which Asus hasn't really directly addressed, about the complaints about the SD card slot, where it burned a lot of cards out to where they were unusable. Some people were luckily able to restore them, but it wasn't the case for everybody. Now, the MSI Claw, I had no issues with the SD card slot so far. If you haven't seen my review, I did give it a really good test on the SD card. I actually hooked it up to an external monitor, and played Helldivers 2, which was installed on the external SD card, which had 0 issues. Now, software side, we have the MSI M Center versus the Asus Armory Crate Lite. I know why you guys are laughing, because they're both not the greatest software. Nobody really likes to use the bloatware, as people like to call it. But personally, to me, Armory Crate Lite has been excellent. I haven't really had any issues. MSI M Center, it's been okay. I really like the idea of the design. It's really functional if it works. Both of them, you can really go and customize a lot of settings here. You could go customize the joysticks, the outer thresholds. This is where you can actually go into your device and do a lot of customizing. Another thing that Asus has added, now this happened in the middle of the year, it actually didn't happen during the release of the Asus Rog Ally, is the whole gyroscoping. That was a new function that was actually added not that long ago, but it works excellent, and the MSI Claw will probably more than likely eventually gain that function. It also has the customizability when it comes to the profiles are a bit better too when it comes to Armory Crate. Now you can set your controls to a specific game. For example, you could hook it up to Call of Duty, Helldivers 2. You could hook it up to Boulder Gates 3. Whatever game you have, you can set customized controls completely for just that game. Now, currently with the MSI M Center, you cannot do that. You would have to go into the controls, and it's practically a general control for all games across the board. So you're unable to do that. So hopefully MSI M Center does improve on that side. Now, when it comes to RGB functions, they're both practically the same when it comes to that. You go to their settings, it's much more customizable when you go onto the Armory Crate side, as you can go into the update centers, and it's much more intricate compared to the M Center, which is practically a simplistic setup. It's more meant for getting into PC gaming, which is not really a big deal, but it is a great start to understand about PC gaming, if anything. Which I failed to mention, Intel does have an MPU built into the processor, which is also to help recognize tasks that you're doing, such as gaming, whether you're using it for just browsing or watching movies. The MPU is supposed to kick in and also be able to help be more efficient in that sense, or whether to go more performance. The centers, I would have to say Armory Crate is definitely the better way to go. And what is called the control center for the Asus Rog Ally is also really good compared to the quick settings, as it's called, for the MSI Claw. Now the quick settings, I really like the design of it. The only thing is when you scroll, you're unable to scroll like this with it. So it kind of complicates things, and you might accidentally hit one of the large tiles instead of actually scrolling up and down on the quick settings. If you go into Asus Rog Allies, it's much more functional in that sense. It's much more multi-touch. You won't accidentally hit any tiles typically, but it can get, it is a little bit tighter, and they did add a little bit more features. But enough of that. This isn't really about a tour about the whole software side, but I do gotta say on the Asus Rog Ally, it is much better software compared to the MSI Claw. The reason being is the MSI Claw is still pretty glitchy when it comes to their audio. I've noticed that when it comes to its AI mode, the audio, it cuts in and out, especially in games like Modern Warfare 3. The noise canceling will block the sound by accident because it's thinking that it is some sort of noise. Actuality, it's not really the case. It's just that the sound is just more vibrant in those type of games, or much more sporadic. So it would automatically start blocking those sounds. But with the Asus Rog Ally, you don't really have that point. But in all fairness, the Asus Rog Ally, when it did first release, it did run into an issue when it came to its speakers. It had that crackling issue, especially when it came to Diablo 4, or when it came to certain games, it would be because of the Dolby Vision sound that was built into the software, which would cause the crackling. Eventually it was fixed, but sometimes you will still get crackling every now and then on certain games, which is something the Asus Rog Ally can improve on. They both have their issues when it comes to audio. It isn't perfect, but the Asus Rog Ally definitely is better when it comes to the audio side. Without further ado, let's get into the gaming and the benchmarks to get an idea of how each in-game functions on both devices, see which one gets better FPS, see which one is more comfortable to game on. Well, we're about to find out which is better. Here we're gonna run the benchmark, as it will use Intel's super sampling compared to AMD's FSR or RSR. You can see already the difference in the FPS and the usage compared to AMD's Ryzen Z1 Extreme paired up against the 155H by Intel. Probably curious about the whole lag when it comes to a PC handheld. Of course, when you use a full-on gaming PC, you don't really get the experience of it, but because everything is much more compact, you're probably afraid that it can happen. And it does happen. When I first got the MSI Claw, I did have some software issues. Almost seemed like that there was an issue with the device, but it was just so many updates coming so quick at the device. It just made it seem like that the device had an issue, but it really wasn't. Instead, it had a good 2 to 3 hours full of updates. The Asus Rog Ally didn't really have any issues when I first started the device. I noticed too, like when you do play games, even though this has Wi-Fi 7, there is packet delays and there is delays on games such as Call of Duty. It wasn't because of the displays itself. More than likely, it had a network issue that had to be resolved. With the Asus Rog Ally, I have little complaints when it comes to it. It's been just dead on accurate. How much more frames you can get out of the Asus Rog Ally, nearly double compared to the MSI Claw. When it comes to fatigue and heat, Asus Rog Ally, its ergonomics are pretty good. But it's just a little bit thin, so your hands can get a little bit tired of gripping on it. Now the MSI Claw does have better ergonomics. When it comes to actually gripping on the controls, it feels just like you're holding a controller literally when you do hold the MSI Claw, which makes it a lot more comfortable. Even though it's a little bit more heavier, it really feels like you're holding a controller. With the Asus Rog Ally, your hands can get fatigued over time, but if you have smaller hands, it probably doesn't affect you as much. Now, if you have larger hands, it will affect you after gripping it for some time. It doesn't really build up any heat like that on the Asus Rog Ally. Most of the heat is built up on the top of the device. Now, sometimes the heat can be pretty high on the top where you hit the triggers on the Asus Rog Ally, where you can feel a little bit, but it doesn't get to the point where you feel like you're burning your fingers. Same thing with MSI Claw, doesn't get to the point where it gets extremely hot. Another issue that I did notice, Asus Rog Ally doesn't really have the issue when it hook up a controller such as a DualSense or Xbox controller, whatever controller that you hook up to the Asus Rog Ally, it does really well. It's super functional. Now, some of you guys that say, oh no, it doesn't really work that good, that's false, because when you go into a game, just remember to turn off your embedded controller. It has that in the quick settings. Now for the MSI Claw, it does not have that in their quick settings. It does not have the ability to disable the embedded control. Instead, the workaround is you would have to go into Steam Big Picture mode, go into the game that you want to with your external controller, and then have Steam input installed for the game. So that way you're able to game on the external controller perfectly well. Both devices you can hook up to a external monitor. Now the one that I did show, which was the PG34 WCDM, works excellent because it does feature up to 90 watts of power delivery. So you don't even have to hook up a charger, which is a really great option for those who have a PC handheld device. That way it eliminates the need for charging. On top of it, it functions just like HDMI, or better yet, it functions more like DisplayPort. Just mind you, if you do try to go into, say, ultra wide mode, it will affect performance for obvious reasons. They both can stream off of Steam if you wanted to, if you have a larger gaming PC. Another thing that I do have to mention, the difference between both devices too, the wattage of the processor. It's 25 watt, 15 watt, and 10 watt. 10 watt, you're not going to game on for obvious reasons. It's silent mode for a reason, because that's meant for more browsing and watching movies. Now you have 15 watt mode, which is performance, and then turbo mode, which is 25 watt to 30 watt. You can also customize your wattage if you want to. With the MSI Claw, you can customize your wattage. The difference is that their settings, they have much more advanced settings. It goes to either AI mode, which it will automatically pick whatever task that you're doing, such as gaming, or you can go into balance mode, which is trying to balance performance and efficiency, and it also has super battery saver. You can also game on it, but if you do game on it, just know that performance takes a large hit. Same thing with the Asus Rog Ally for obvious reasons. When it comes to gaming on the actual wattage, I would say 15 watts to 30 watts is perfect for the Asus Rog Ally. It's much more comfortable to game on those settings compared to which this is practically stuck at 30 watts for some odd reason, and the temperatures do reach a lot higher on their processor. You can go up to 103 degrees Celsius, which I personally saw. This was off of benchmarks. And gaming wise, I've seen it go up as high as 97, 98 degrees Celsius, but it averages between 74, 75. And now with the Asus Rog Ally, it typically averages, depending on the type of game that you also play. Now I'm gonna just use Modern Warfare 3 for an example, since I use that a lot in this video. For the Asus Rog Ally, that typically runs about I'd say 61 to 64 degrees Celsius. It's not really a lot. For the MSI Claw, for some reason, it gets a little bit more hotter on that side. And since I'm speaking about the efficiency and the performance of both processors, I do gotta say, you're probably curious about the battery watt hours that you can get out of it. Even though this is 53 watt hours, and this is 40 watt hours. The AMD is much more better optimized in that sense. It's only about 1 minute off, but in super battery saver mode, you do get a lot more battery power out the MSI Claw if you do attempt to game on it. Now, again, please don't game on silent mode with the Asus Rog Ally. It just completely sucks. If you try to, just go performance or go the full out turbo mode. So you can see that there is a little bit of a gain from the 53 watt hour battery, but then again, future softwares can make a large difference when it comes to battery life. Both devices are far from perfect. Now the pros when it comes to the whole Asus Rog Ally is that it just works really well. It's probably the most functioning PC handheld gaming device that there is out there. Software is one of the top, and when it comes to macros, it's the best when it comes to setting it. It also is much more customizable. It has gyroscoping, which is a big game changer when it comes to gaming on a PC gaming handheld, which makes it a whole lot more fun. It also has a lot more flexibility, and it has less lag when it comes into any type of games. You do have a better experience gaming on the device. Now the negatives of it is it doesn't come with Hall effect sticks. If you are interested in getting Hall effect sticks, you're gonna more than likely have to install them yourself. I do gotta say, it only comes with 512 gigabytes. There is no option for 1 terabyte or 2 terabytes. You do have to install it yourself if that is what you want. So if 512 gigabytes isn't enough for you and you don't want to take apart your device to install it, then maybe the MSI Claw would be for you. But again, I wouldn't really suggest the MSI Claw to anyone. It's still a new device. It's still in the making, and who knows, within 6 months from now, it could be an awesome device after all the software is ironed out and all the gaming side is ironed out with Intel. So far, personally, to me, I haven't really been too impressed with Meteor like this year. I gotta be fair enough to say that this is Intel's first go at this, and hopefully next year it does improve more of an understanding when it comes to their processors, because sometimes I feel like Intel is really losing it. The whole 14900KS, which is a whole nother story. But anyway, the MSI Claw does have its issues, has issues hooking up your controller, has issues hooking with the audio sounds, it has issues with the software. It also has issues when you go into games that sometimes it's not really functional. There's issues with the AI mode. There's a lot of issues I could keep going on and on about, but like I said, it's a new device, and if you want to be the first one to have it, then you can go ahead. But I would suggest to wait a little bit to see exactly how well it goes. So personally, to me, the crown has to go to the Asus Rog Ally. It's a much more better device, and I personally love gaming on the Asus Rog Ally. It's just a phenomenal device. So fam guys, if you're interested in any of these devices, please check down the description box down below as I have them listed. And if you do help out, it does support this channel. If you know anybody else who is into PC gaming, make sure you share this video with them. And if you're not part of the big wonderful fan band, make sure you go down and hit the subscribe button for more, and don't forget to hit the notification bell. And for all the newest updates, make sure you follow my X handle right here, as it is the same as my TikTok and IG as well. What are your thoughts of PC gaming in your hands? Thank you guys so much for watching. This is Chris Mizo, signing out.